Good morning, Kipsters. Mr. Franklin here. I am not coming to you live from my second floor studio. In fact, I don't have my green screen behind me. I'm a little, a little worn down because for the last 2 days I've been getting my house ready to put on the market. I had my first showing yesterday, and I was sick yesterday, so I'm not feeling the best. But I'm gonna do my best to push through for you guys here. Today we're going to be talking about the rise of the World War II dictators. We're going to talk about three dictators specifically. I'm going to point those dictators out during the presentation, and then I'm going to run you through the work today. I hope to see 100% engagement. I'm not going to do my shout-outs today. I'm not going to do my engagement tracker today. I'll cut to that tomorrow when I get my studio set up and I'm a little better prepared for everything. So let's get right into things, shall we? During World War II, there were a variety of dictators. A dictator is a leader who rules a country by force and gains their power through force. They are different than a monarch, aka a king or a queen. Remember, a king or a queen get their power through hereditary means, aka they pass it on to their son or daughter. A dictator, again, gets their power through force. In Europe and Japan at the time, there were dictators who rose to power. We're going to talk about three specifically today. We're going to keep the Japanese leader Hideki Tojo out of it today because when we have our presentation and our lesson on Pearl Harbor, we're going to discuss him more in depth. So essentially, nationalism rose to prominence in Europe and Asia at the time of World War II. Remember, we talked about nationalism when we talked about World War I. Nationalism means an overwhelming love of your country, an over-the-top love of your country. For many nations, the World War I did not bring peace and prosperity, but brought revolutions and political turmoil. The post-war years also brought the rise of dictators who were driven by the belief in nationalism, loyalty to one's country above all else. And many of these dictators, one of their common threads was to expand the territory of their country. So Japan wanted to expand their territory, Germany, Italy wanted to expand their territory, and even Russia wanted to expand their territory. And most of this could be blamed on the failure of the Treaty of Versailles to bring peace to the world. Good morning, Lazarus. You want to say good morning to the kids? Okay, just come over here. He's got his iPad. Look at the screen. Say good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. You want them to do all their work? Yeah. Say, do your work, kids. Do your work, kids. Okay. I'll get you some food here in a second, okay? Yeah. All right. So all of this, the rise of dictators in Europe and Japan can be blamed particularly on the failure of the Treaty of Versailles. Now remember, the Treaty of Versailles was the treaty that went into place in 1919 following the end of World War I. And instead of keeping the world safe and free for democracies, it caused a lot of anger and resentment around the world. The new democratic nations that emerged after the Treaty of Versailles failed. They weren't powerful enough to keep the peace. They didn't fulfill the economic wants and needs of their citizens. And without a democratic tradition, people turned to authoritarian leaders to solve their social and economic problems. You have to realize when there are times of great distress in a country, if somebody who is a powerful leader steps up and promises or solves those problems, people will turn to that dictator. So let's start off by talking about the first dictator. We're going to talk about Joseph Stalin of Russia. So Joseph Stalin came out of a Russian civil war in 1924 and took control of Russia. Stalin's first step was to abolish all farms and replace them with collective, large government-owned farms. So the government took over all of the farms that were owned by farmers and collectivized them, made them part of the government. He transformed, buddy, I'm doing a presentation. You gotta wait. I will come help you in a minute. His first step was to abolish all farms and replace them with collective farms. He transformed Russia from a rural nation and an industrial power to an industrial power. And in 1937, Russia became the world's second largest industrial power behind the United States. So because of Joseph Stalin, the USSR, aka Russia, became a powerful country. What were Joseph Stalin's goals? Um, so, let's talk a little bit more about Stalin. So one of the things that you need to know that he was a brutal dictator. Anybody who questioned him, went against him, he eliminated. He put millions of Russians um, in death camps, and he killed between 8 and 13 million people. So killed the same, if not more, than Hitler. Um, by 39, he had complete control over his government as a dictator. What were his goals? He wanted to collectivize the farms, make the Communist Party the only party in Russia, and he wanted to control the economy. He wanted the government to control it completely. I'm going to go ahead and pause so I can get my son some breakfast. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. We are back. I'm going to go back into the presentation. All right, Stalin's goals. We said he wanted to collectivize the farms. He wanted the Communist Party as the only authority and state planning of the economy. All right, next leader, Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini was the leader of Italy. Essentially, there was an economic collapse in Italy. Unemployment, inflation produced bitter strikes. Mussolini was a military leader who marched on Rome with his followers, called the Black Shirts. The Italian king gave up and appointed him the head of government because he was scared of the military power. Mussolini played on fears and economic collapse and communism. He won the support of the army, police, and local government. He established fascism. The fascist party stressed nationalism and placed the interests of the state above those of individuals. That's what a fascist country is. Fascists argued that power must rest with a single strong leader and a small group of devoted members. What were his goals? Mussolini's goals were to bring back the glory of ancient Rome and to crush individual civil liberties so that Italy, in his mind, could thrive. So Benito Mussolini, man, I am not on my game today. Benito Mussolini, fascist leader of Italy. And last but not least, we have Adolf Hitler, who is, of course, the leader of Germany, which you've learned about. At the end of World War I, we know that he was a jobless drifter. He wanted to be an artist, but he failed at that. The German economy had been crushed by the Treaty of Versailles and the Great Depression. So he joined. He did not found the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. He joined it. It was a group that already existed. He joined. He quickly rose through the ranks because of his leadership abilities, his powerful speaking voice, and became leader of the Nazis. In 1933, he was appointed prime minister. We talked about that. He was appointed prime minister by Hindenburg, and he never was elected in an economic election, but became leader of Nazi Germany. Once in power, Hitler dismantled Germany's Democratic Republic. In its place, he established the Third Reich, Third German Empire. Hitler, who had been born in Austria, dreamed of uniting all German-speaking people in the Great German Empire. He also wanted to enforce racial purification, and any Jews and non-whites were deemed fit only to serve the Aryan race, which was the German people. Hitler believed that in order for Germany to thrive, he needed more living space. They needed the territory back that they had lost after World War I. And Nazism is essentially fascism for German people. So it is fascism. It's a form of fascism, the belief that the good of the country is more important than the individual, and that you must be ruled by a single leader. His goals were territorial expansion, extreme nationalism, and racism, and he eliminated the opposition. All right, so that's what you need to know today. Please feel free to rewind and rewatch that. You have 3 important leaders that you're learning about. Your work today is super, super simple. I'm going to go over that with you really briefly, but it should be simple and straightforward. All right, let's jump into the worksheet that you're going to work on today. You're going to be working on this worksheet, World War II, Rise of the Dictators. Very simple. You're going to read here, read about Mussolini, read about Hitler, read about Stalin, and you're going to answer the 10 questions. Now, some of you have been tried to be slick, and you're trying to submit your work without actually putting answers in. Not going to happen. Very simple, straightforward. I know you can do it. So after you do this, if you'd like to watch a supplemental video that talks about the rise of the dictators and nationalism, you can do that. That's optional. That's supplemental material. The important thing is I want you to answer these 10 questions after you read this article. Once you've done that, please fill out the Google form so that we're all on the same page about shout-outs. I definitely want to see shout-outs. One thing that's coming this Friday that I want to talk about is we're going to be having our first Zoom Fest. So you guys are going to be able to see each other, log in, and that's going to be in the afternoon on Friday. More information to come, but please look forward to that. All right, guys, I love you. Let's get back to our work. Let's do it 100%. Let's get those grades up, and let's have a beautiful day.